my radios, left engine fire. Left arm. Left is confirmed, the fire bell is silenced, hydraulic pressure annunciator eliminated. Left condition lever, that's confirmed, cut off. Left propeller lever, confirmed, feathered. Mayday, mayday, mayday. Brisbane Centre and all stations, Pearling 99, Grumman Mallard flying boat, 14 POB. We're indicating an engine fire, stand by for intentions, squawking 7700. Fire light not out. Fire first bottle fired. Fire light not out. Fire second bottle fired, no bottles remaining. Looks like we've got an uncontained engine fire. Agreed. I think we should do an emergency descent and do a forced water landing. Understood and agreed.
Okay guys, simulation complete. Well done. How do you reckon we went?
Yeah, not too bad.
My name is Drew Daniel. I'm a captain for Paspaley Aviation on the G73AT Grumman Mallard. I've been flying seaplanes for over 15 years now and have been with Paspaley for 5 years. We operate the Mallards as multi-crew, IFR, twin turbine, both day and night. The Mallards are run in a very supportive role, one of logistics, where we supply support to the Pearling farms. In the commercial side of things, we have the capacity to do things like scenic flights, charters to many destinations, whether they're on the water or an island or land, and also fishing charters are very popular, where we can take the client directly to their fishing boat. The company is also looking at expanding into things like safaris, where based over multiple days you can do multiple stops in different areas across the top end of Australia or even down south. It's very similar to an airline in the operations. We run airline procedures. The difference is we get to land on the water. Definitely the ultimate seaplane job for me, probably the pinnacle of my seaplane adventures and career to date. I mean, what we're doing here is pretty unique, very special, and I'm very fortunate to be part of that. Simulators have been with me since the first simulator ever came out, version 1. And every iteration after that I've followed as well, and it became more an obsession than anything. And if we fast forward to 2010, flying commercially in beavers and caravans and looking at a cockpit window every day, I knew what that view looked like. So when you come home to fly a simulator, back then you were very much just looking at a screen. And I wanted to change that so that I could still sit in a simulator but look out a window at moving terrain. So that's when the 767 simulator was born, the idea for that. I went with an airline simply because I flew sort of GA aircraft during the day and some of the most beautiful scenery in the world, and then I could go home at night, jump into a jet, fly anywhere in the world with real world procedures, and I could even do it with a beer in my hand. I had parts brought in from Canada. I had the control yokes and flight management computers and 180-degree wraparound screens. And it was quite an effort, and I think what I achieved in the end was actually half decent. And the visuals in an enclosed area were actually that good. People were falling over in the back. It was quite a lot of fun. The motivation for the Mallard simulator was brought about a few years ago. I just finished an instrument proficiency check with the chief pilot, and whilst it was safe and I had passed, we'd all set ourselves a certain standard, and I felt that I fell short of the standard for myself on that day. So when I went home, I thought about, what had happened and how I could improve on that. And that's when the idea sparked. I knew I'd built a 767 simulator before, and I thought, this is something that I could really do. So how about I go ahead and build some sort of Mallard simulator? And that's where the idea was born, and that was about 2 years ago, and that's brought us to today. Okay folks, welcome to the Mallard Sim. The basic construction you can see is wood. 3 main parts. We have the base, the main instrument panel, and then the overhead panel attached to that. It took a couple of years to get it to this stage. where it is functioning quite well. Remember, it is still very much a work in progress. It's still my simulator, still very much a privately owned scenario, but we are looking at getting it to a stage where we can use it for a real procedural trainer for the pilots that we have at our company. So having a closer look at the simulator, you'll see straight away the most prominent thing to be looking at are the instruments, which are fairly well replicated in here, and it's indicative of what's in the actual aircraft. The instruments are actually on 23 and 24 inch screens. Then there are holes cut out in the panel to allow the instrument to show through the hole that's on the screen. I had to measure the actual gauges in the real aircraft, work out exactly the spacing so that when I aligned the instruments onto the screen, they lined up through the holes perfectly. And what we see here, bar a few small changes, is pretty much exactly what you would see in the real Mallard. The control yoke we can see here is a real yoke that can't be used in the real Mallard anymore, so I've made good use of it here in the sim and mounted it to the base and connected it up to potentiometers. So that was a really great addition, because the plastic control yokes that you can buy online for any home simulator just weren't quite as good as the real thing, and we have the real play that we have here in the real aircraft. This instrument panel down here is the annunciator panel, which is a replica of the one in the real aircraft. That was a work of art, as many of these instruments I had made by a fellow in France. He's very clever, as there are no instruments for the Grumman Mallard, so they had to be made. And it's all connected to switches up above, which all react the same way as they do in the real aircraft. So moving up, we have an altitude management system like the real aircraft, fire suppression systems, master warnings. The controls were quite interesting. I had to mount them in a certain way so they replicate the real aircraft, and they work as they should. All the levers for the aircraft are attached to slide potentiometers and wired into a special input-output card. Moving up, these are the real aircraft switches. The company was kind enough to supply those so we could hook them up, and majority of them operate the same way they do in the real aircraft. And I made these handles to replicate the fuel tank selectors in the real aircraft as well. Okay, so the pedals are your basic plastic Logitech type pedals, and I've just attached real Grumman Mallard rudder pedals to those just to add a little bit of authenticity, and they operate just like they would in the real aircraft with braking as well on the captain's side. And the seats that we have are VR Commodore seats that I got from Eureka and mounted them to the floor. They have rails that go back and forth. In the real aircraft they don't move, but they suit the purpose and they look very similar.
I'm really excited about this simulator and the opportunities it's going to provide to us as a crew and as a team at Pass Bailey Aviation. And what Drew's done with this has been absolutely phenomenal, all off his own bat and taking his own initiative to achieve what we have here today. This would have helped me in my training, I think, by providing a opportunity to learn the aircraft and the design and layout of the cockpit in a really low stress, low risk environment. When it comes time for my command upgrade training in the future, I think this sim will provide the ability to practice all of the procedures that we have, really polish my skills and transition me effectively and efficiently from a first officer into a captain.